This is another Turbine Guy Network special investigative report. Turbine Guy coming back at you on front of the Orono Council Chambers yet again, and to talk to you about an event that happened back in 2020 that's actually pretty interesting and a little disturbing, and I think is going to give our mayor a brand new nickname, the child mayor of the western suburbs. Let's dive into this just a little bit and see why I would say that. Now, I do want to say Mr. Adam Edwards, who accuses me of being untruthful quite often, I sat through a deposition today where one of your former employees was sworn to tell the truth, so help him God. And he told the truth today. And that's where this story comes from. For some reason, the Turbine Guy ain't making it up there, Mr. Edwards. I sat through the deposition today of Roger Pezzo, former building inspector who was, boom, canned in 2020. Now, he testified that he'd never had a negative job review and he'd only had positive job reviews. So why the heck did he just get fired out of the blue? Well, this ties into another video I did back around that time where we ran into a bunch of political and other signs in a dumpster out here by Orono. And it turns out it was the bed of a old dump truck. Same kind of thing, though. And what was happening, Mr. Pezzo testified to under oath, was as his job was to do, and he'd done for every year he'd been working here for years, is he would pick up signs that are in the right of the way and he'd discard them. Well, because there were so many, he said this year, so many, especially political signs, it was crazy. Instead of 10 or 20, it was hundreds, he said. He said he put them in this dumpster so people could come retrieve their signs, so they wouldn't be thrown away. He was actually trying to be a good guy. But you know what? Good guys don't always win. And the Turbine Guy's proof of that. Well, one of the signs he took that was in the right-of-way was that of our venerable, childlike mayor, petulant guy, Dennis Walsh. And when Walsh found out that his sign was taken out and thrown in the dumpster like everybody else's, that he would go have a word with the gentleman who did it. Now, Mr. Pezzo was very diplomatic in his words, but it was pretty easy to read between those lines. Basically, Walsh was yelling at him, and if you know Walsh, most likely here throwing some kind of temper tantrum, all upset, blah, blah, blah. And we've seen this before from Walsh up here on the dais or whatever, so we got a good idea what he was doing. And then mysteriously, shortly after, a resolution came through for the guy to be fired. That's right. What certainly appears to be retaliation for doing his job and taking everybody's signs, including the mayor's, and putting them somewhere where they could get them back. Out the door, Mr. Building Inspector. And now we don't have a building inspector in Orono anymore, and it's contracted out. Yes, you heard that right. In a retaliatory measure, our building inspector gone because most likely, I mean, I don't have any proof of this, but you know, you can only supposition enough to figure this out. There's only one complaint to Pezzo about taking the signs away, and that was Walsh. There's only one person who yelled at Pezzo about it, and that was Walsh. There's only one person who had the power to tell everybody else to fire Pezzo, and that was, boom, our child mayor, the Weasel Walsh. Now, unfortunately, for documentation purposes, I guess good for our tax purposes, Mr. Pezzo didn't follow this up with a retaliation lawsuit because under the at-will workers deal, retaliation is one of the two main reasons you can go after somebody, and it's pretty obvious here what was going on, especially when you know the people involved. Because we had the other retaliatory firing or hostile workplace or racial stuff, whatever happened, that cost us $90,000 as well. So and this actually happened afterwards, not before, it happened afterwards. So you'd think Orono would learn its lesson and quit playing games with people's livelihoods, with their jobs, their lives, and everything else over one person's petty little tantrum. Not forget that any of the other council members up there that voted for this were participating in the wrongful retaliatory firing of an Orono employee who was simply doing their job for a very petty issue for a very, very petty man. Orono, even though you've been caught and held to the stone once with a $90,000 deal, you don't care. It's not your money. You'll keep spending it all you want to. You'll spend it on lawyers. You'll spend it on firing people. You'll spend it on public works, whatever. Just out the door. It's not your money. You combine that attitude with a petulant child, and you got our mayor here in Orono. And I just found more proof of it today, and it wasn't my words. It was a former city employee under oath telling the truth. Turbine Guy signing off.